And just like that, back for part 2 of the NBA trade deadline primer. We got some more fun trades using ESPN's trade machine to hash out with Andre. All right, so another one, and this one's kind of getting beat to death in terms of the Knicks. Even I'm getting tired of throwing around the Carmelo Anthony trade rumors, but it still seems like now that the Clippers would be the interesting piece. I'm not sure if we've talked about this on camera yet. I know you might have mentioned it maybe in part of the solo videos you've done. I know I've mentioned it in videos. I know that you've mentioned it in writing. But the Crawford, Rivers, Redick for Carmelo Anthony and Kyle O'Quinn, people keep forgetting, is the probably the most likely to be moved New York Knick at the deadline, even more so than Melo at this point. ESPN Trade Machine says the Knicks get 10 wins worse. That's just, what are we projected to have, negative wins? And then the Clippers get 3 extra wins to pair with Blake and hopefully a healthy CP3, DeAndre Jordan down the stretch.
So actually, I have to respond to something you mentioned about videos that I do for you guys. You actually don't know this yet. We were just talking about Isaiah Thomas, but I also did an Isaiah Thomas video that I'm just editing and will be emailing to you probably this evening.
Nice.
As far as trading Melo to the Clippers, I mean, I look at that package. I have no idea why the Knicks would do it. I feel like this was kind of a manufactured problem. I've been an advocate of trading Melo, of him not necessarily fitting in on a team that should be building around the unicorn. You know, yes. I'm all for that. But there was no need for it to be a crisis trade, right? Like, all the Knicks had to do, all Phil Jackson had to do was shut up and just talk to other GMs.
You're
and come
asking
up with
a lot.
Deal.
You're asking a lot for someone who loves Twitter.
Right. And it's like he just kept talking about Melo, and to the point where it became painful. It was like, okay, well, I guess they want to trade Melo, and obviously he lives in the world, so he sees this, and so now he feels some kind of way, but he's got a no trade clause. And I mean, it's just, I don't know at this point. If I was the Knicks, I think I would just suck it up and keep him. And because if that's all I can get for him, then what's the point? Just let him be a native son. If you were going to trade him, and then maybe just start playing him fewer minutes. And if that annoys him, maybe that'll get him to waive his no trade clause with the team having more control. But other than that, just let him be there. Like you said, it's not like the team is going to be gangbusters anyway. And yeah, they should be building around the unicorn, but I mean, he's got some value. Don't just give him away for 3 guys that you don't even really want on the court. I mean, that doesn't make sense.
That's what seems to be the most interesting thing about the Melo trade rumors is, what is Carmelo Anthony's value? And truthfully, when I'm reading through, I'll go on the Vertical, and I like that some of their writers are ex-front office executives, so you kind of get a little bit more of a taste of what's going through the mind of an executive, because in the end, as we just saw again with Cousins, it's a business when it comes to these trades. So I think that when I'm reading through some of those, like, it seems like there's no actual understanding of what his total value is, a lot because of the drama that surrounds the Knicks, Carmelo Anthony, Phil Jackson. If you stripped it all away and we just looked at the tape, you would still see he could still score. So we're talking about somebody who doesn't play to the level of an all-star starter, I would say, anymore, or an all-star, whatever it means to be an all-star at this point, because he was technically one, even though he wanted to be on vacation, as he stated. He can still score. He can still be very useful or a piece to a team. He just can't be the piece, the superstar, the guy for someone who's 32 years old, if I'm correct. All right, we're moving forward. We have another one. I love the trade machine. Just good for throwing things together. Now, Paul George is an interesting topic. I don't know what the Pacers are doing. At times, they look like they're putting things together and they can still build around Paul George. At other times, it seems like he could get lured to Los Angeles, because those who don't think they want to part with Brandon Ingram, to me, is insane. I do like what he could become, but I also, as a GM, would think I'd really like a superstar player right now. And if you can get Paul George, if you're the Lakers, do you want Paul George with D'Angelo Russell maybe Jordan Clarkson and young Julius Randle down there.
Yeah, like to me, this is the most interesting of the three, just as far as I could see a reason why both teams would do it.
Yeah.
Brandon Ingram, I mean, yeah, he was a number 2 pick in the draft. He's got all this upside, but keeping it real, if he hits 95% of his upside, he becomes Paul George. It's like
that's true.
maybe he could possibly surpass Paul George, but that's almost like perfect case scenario. So yeah, if you're the Lakers and and if you're cynical about it, they've already lost enough this year that they're going to get a good lottery pick. But now you could take that lottery pick, put him with D'Angelo Russell. If he seems like he's at least a solid NBA pro. Paul George is your centerpiece. Randall also seems solid. Maybe you can get a good rookie, and then you're LA. So maybe you can bring in a free agent and start trying to make some noise now. Paul George is never going to be the best player in the NBA.
Nope.
If you believe that Brandon Ingram will be, then maybe you hesitate. I don't see that as his upside, So to me, I do this deal if I'm the Lakers, if that's on the table. And if I'm the Pacers, it's essentially an acknowledgement that you are not going to have a team that's going to be Cleveland within Paul George's window. And I think that's a fair acknowledgement. And if so, then yeah, why not get a young guy who does have the potential to be George or better in a couple of years, as well as a couple other pieces that, you never know what you might be able to do with them. But yeah, I could see that as a deal that makes sense to both sides.
Right. So, well, one of the things you just mentioned there that I find very interesting, and I guess we can leave on or kind of start to close out on this topic here. I wonder how many GMs won't say it, but are believing maybe we should just wait for both LeBron James and this Warriors team to just fizzle out. And maybe we should let them run the league for at least two more years, because we don't stand a chance against a team like the Warriors if we had to play them in 7 games. Or if you're in the East, it's going to be really difficult to beat LeBron James right now. Now, no GM is going to come out and go, look, unless you're the Kings, we have a 9-year plan. We're not going to be good until 2027. We're really going to wait till everything blows over. But I'm really curious at this point, and I wonder if they'd even answer the question if I would ever get the chance to ask them, are you waiting for LeBron and the Warriors to stop being LeBron and the Warriors to really make your push? Because if you are using that strategy or even something along those lines, well, then you can get a Brandon Ingram if you're the Pacers and get some draft picks. And by the time they develop, if developed accordingly, you don't have to worry about X teams. Now, the biggest counter to that, I would think, would be, well, we got a guy like Karl Anthony Towns growing in Minnesota. We got a guy like Nikola Jokic growing in Denver. We got all these unicorn players in Giannis, like we don't want to run into them in a few years either. So I'm just curious if you think that's something that goes through their minds.
Yeah, no, I would think that you would have to, if you're a GM, evaluate the landscape and decide whether you can be competitive or not. And probably based on where you are now is going to determine which way you go with it. Like if you're a team, like for instance, we were talking about Boston earlier, right? If you're a Celtics team and you're like, okay, we've got a 50-win caliber team right now. We have 1 or 2 obvious holes. If we can address those holes, and oh, by the way, we've got like 37 draft picks in the next 2 years, so we can address our holes and still have upside to maybe get better, then maybe you go for it now. But if you're a team, not to pick on the Pacers, we were just talking about them, but if you're a team like the Pacers, like, are you really a hit away? Is your farm system stocked enough that you can realistically see going out and getting a combination of players in the next year or two that is going to make you better than Cleveland? Maybe not, and if that's the case, then yeah, if you have somebody calling with a blue chip prospect like Ingram, I mean, he was a number 2 pick and many thought he should have been number 1. So, if you can get that type of blue chip prospect, then yeah, maybe you do hit reset and say, you know what, we'll give this another try. I think it all depends on where you're standing, and the Pelicans are standing a lot better now than they were 24 hours ago. The Kings plan doesn't make sense no matter, you can't put a strategy to it that makes that make sense. Like even if you have a 9-year plan, that was still a dumb way to start your 9-year plan. But I mean, it is what it is. It's, it's
Right.
kind of
The
like
Kings.
our election. You have to accept the results and hope for the best.
Look, we'll come back to this segment in 8 years when the Kings and the Nets are duking it out for the NBA Finals.
Yeah, yep. And we'll say, you
Because
know what?
just
They knew all along.
I'm curious what happens first: the Kings have a winning season, or the Nets actually have a draft pick. No, I mean, if you look, I think it is maybe still. I mean, they must have some second-round picks, but it could be like 3 years before they have a first-round draft pick because they traded literally everything until Trump blows up America in terms of draft picks to the
Yeah.
Boston Celtics. The NBA trade deadline is this Thursday, February 23rd. It is going to be awesome. There's going to be movement. We'll be here to break down all of it definitely on Friday. To discuss some more of the I don't want to say lesser players, but the not blockbuster moves. Like there's the Shelvin Max of the world who could be on the move. Brandon Knights and Emmanuel Mudiay's. Like these are guys that are more likely than anybody else to be traded because they're not superstars. It doesn't take, you don't have to move mountains to get these type of players to your team. And it looks like it's gearing up to be similar to the Goran Dragic trade year where everything started to explode. It was 2014, I believe that was, or 2015. So Andre, as always, thank you for joining me. Hoopslab.rotowire.com. A lot of really interesting stuff on there, not just basketball related. I encourage everyone to read them. Also, rotowire.com for the DFS advice if you need it. Andre's going to be rewriting his whole column tonight because of what the Kings did. That's why he's really mad, guys. He had it done, he was ahead, and now he's behind. And then lastly, at Professor DRZ on Twitter. Make sure to check it all out. Andre, as always, good talking to you, and we'll be back soon.
All right, look forward to it.